Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to the Liberty Report. With us today, we have Chris Rossini, our co-host. Chris, welcome to the program.
Hello, Dr. Paul. Great to be with you.
Yes, you know, what we want to talk about today is what should our government do and what should our military do? Should it defend us or other countries? Can you imagine why we even have to ask the question? Of course, the authoritarians and the people who think they know everything and the people who believe in empire and the people who believe in taking care of special interests like the military-industrial complex, they have a different opinion. So we have a lot of people in opposition to a policy of non-interventionism, mind our own business, but provide defense for our people and for our country, and protect our national sovereignty, and also protect our borders. So we're working hard, spending money overseas. That's why we're bankrupt. But are we protecting our borders? No, that's just running up a bill trying to organize where we're going to put them and what state needs the most votes in order to win the next election. So they have to keep working on that. So this is a shame that this happened. And in a way, it's a pity, even though people would be very proud of our great strength and our great wealth, and therefore we have this moral obligation to go about and bring about peace in the world, that we've had enough money. They feel so obligated of it that money shouldn't count, and some are very blunt about this. Deficits don't matter. They teach it in school. We can get by. Just look how long we've been getting by. And it keeps exploding, and we have all these numbers that make no sense, and it's going to end. But we keep doing it. But one place that has drawn our attention, you know, for a long time, it was the Middle East, you know, Iraq and Afghanistan. But here yesterday, we thought that war was over after 20 years. Yesterday there was somebody bombing one of the air bases because we still have military people, you know, on their bases. So it never ends, but that means they're still part of our empire. But right now, there's been 2 hot spots, and they're trying to get a third one in Taiwan. So the 2 is Ukraine, and that should be winding down, but it isn't. They're fussing a little bit. But as long as the people take our money and think that we're the king of the world, we're going to get away with it. But we want to talk a little bit more really about whom should we support in the Middle East, Israel. Should we always support Israel? Some people believe that we have a biblical obligation to do whatever Israel tells us to do. And we have others that said that the people around them are all terrorists. In some countries, all they're doing is defending their homeland from people invading, bombs from the United States, and yet we're getting the terrorists. I think the word terrorist is a cliche for just saying these people we don't like and we have a moral excuse. As long as they're terrorists and everybody says, oh yeah, the terrorists bombed the towers on 9/11. So they justify that and they feel better about that they're doing this wonderful work for the world, promoting peace and prosperity. But the question comes up, and I think it's a legitimate question, at least under today's circumstances. Who should we really support? Should it be Israel and listen to their arguments? Or should we listen right now? There's a larger segment in this country supporting the Palestinians. And the Palestinians have demonstrated, and they're now a voting bloc. So how are we going to balance this? Well, maybe we can divide the money up. We can say we don't want to expand the war. At the same time we expand the war, we could say we're going to tell Israel not to do this, but keep giving their money. And on it goes. And I have come up with, it's not too astounding. Most people of this program say, what's new about that? Why don't we take away the money from both sides? Why do we have to be on one side or the other? Because we have created these squabbles. Along with our entangling alliances that have been going on for 100 years, we are the deciders and deciding what the boundaries ought to be. And sometimes we get mixed up and not know what we should give to which group. So that's a problem, but it's a fight. But today, it's getting tough. More troops are moving in. We're moving more troops in. The battles have been moved north up to Lebanon, and more people are dying, and it doesn't look good. Yesterday I made a point, I can't understand all these problems we have, but the markets were rather calm. I don't think I could say they're rather calm today. I think people are starting to discount this mess, and it's only beginning. And what we would hope to do from our program here is at least call attention to another side of the issue rather than depending on the mainstream media. And we know there are people out there anxious to hear our discussion. Chris?
Very good, Dr. Paul. Before I begin, I do want to point out for those who may be wondering, Daniel will be back next week. He was traveling. He actually gave a speech in D.C. at the Rage Against the War Machine rally. So that's what he's been up to. He'll be back next week, and I will be here for the rest of the week. Yes, Dr. Paul, it's a sad thing to say that American troops do not defend America. I mean, how backwards is that? And it's very simple. Just get a map. America is not in the Middle East. It's not in Ukraine or 1,000 other places where they're just peppered all over the world. But again, we live in the most propagandized society, so many Americans believe that, yeah, this is normal. We've been conditioned to believe this is normal. Think of the Super Bowl, the most watched program in the world. What do we always see? As far back as I can remember, even as a kid, they always show us the troops all over the world watching the Super Bowl. That's where they are. That's where the troops are. This is bad. This is wrong. They don't belong there. And I would say the most important reason, putting aside the money, is it generates hatred towards us, America, over here. Us, specifically, people like us, we have nothing to do with any of this. Think of Dr. Paul. What really catapulted his visibility in our country was when he told Giuliani that, they don't come over here to attack us because, we're free. They come over here because we're over there messing in their business constantly, and even worse than that, causing massive death. That's why these people all over the world hate us here. So, but here we are all these years later, past that Giuliani moment, still doing the same thing, but a big thing has changed since Dr. Paul and Giuliani. Our society is crumbling fast. Bankruptcy, poverty, inflation, it's all going up in smoke, and we're still doing the same exact things. We have to really knock this off before we go totally bust. So we got to bring the troops home now and not wait for that fateful day where they are forced to do it because they have no other choice.
Yeah, the people who promote this type of activity, both in Israel and the United States, well, this will be limited, even though we've sent troops over there, and that's a big deal right now. But they're not in there, they're not shooting and killing right now, but they're there, and we've already, I think the other day we saw a statistic that showed that there's 40,000 military personnel surrounding and all over the Middle East. It's not like we haven't been there, and yet we're at it. But this is specifically for the invasion that has started by Israel going north into Lebanon. But they say this is just a limited amount. We're securing the borders. We're stopping the terrorists, and they pretend. And yet there are others who are saying, no, that's not it. And even the people who are on the side of those who pretend it's just a limited thing, they're saying, no, we have to secure this whole area for Israel. One thing that popped up yesterday which caught my eye, was there was a picture of a fancy house in Lebanon, and it was land that they're immediately occupying and fighting for, and the land that Israel wants to add to their country. But they had an advertisement on it. They're advertising real estate. Get ready, get ready. This is what we're getting more land for you. We're doing this. I thought, and they do this, and they figure, oh, this is very normal. We're just expanding our horizon. But I was surprised that they were advertising real estate already, which means it's not going to be short-lived. And when we give all this money to these governments, and for the most part we pay for all the weapons, I think the killing of the Lebanon leader, they identified it was American bomb that did that. Well, it's American money that does it too. So whether you give them money and they buy it from somebody else, and I think it's wise to say that money, the dollars are not moral. They can't be morally neutral. When you give it to it, you steal it from somebody here, and then you give it to somebody else, and you have to pick sides over there. And there's always a moral high tone, which is, it's disingenuous because it's not based on a moral principle of non-aggression. It's based on a principle that get what you can get and start selling the land and make some money on the deal and expand our horizon. So that does not mean that one side is always right and the other side always wrong, whether it's in the Middle East or whether it's in Ukraine or whatever. But I tell you what, if you look at it carefully, where the real problems come are usually when we get in the middle. We get in the middle. Look how long we actually got right in the middle and incentivize people to fight that war that's going on in Ukraine right now. So it's that money that brings people out, and you can't give it and say, oh, we're not killing anybody. We're not shooting anybody. Our troops aren't there yet. And so they argue this case, but what's going to happen tomorrow, the next day, and today we took one more step closer to our troops getting involved in another area, and still we have presence in Afghanistan and Syria and Iraq, all over the world, but we're bankrupt and the people are getting sick and tired of it. And one of these days we'll wake up and find out that it's not a viable system, the system that we're operating from, that we'll do everything and take care of everybody and make everybody rich and happy and peaceful because we're the leaders of the world and we have a lot of money and a lot of weapons. Well, there will be an ending to that. We ought to prepare for that. And that is not a difficult task. People say, where would you start? Where would you start? For us, we could start with putting people in Washington, only people who have read the Constitution and actually knew about it, but that isn't the case. So we have a job cut out for us.
Very good, Dr. Paul. Yeah, and my heart goes out to military families, the people, especially those who have lost those in these wars. Because I'm sure that most people, they make a noble decision to join the military, believing that they're going to defend America. And they should have that belief. You're putting your life on the line. You may not come back if you have to fight. But they're deployed all over the world. To me, these lives, these people that are risking their lives are extremely valuable. They're not mercenaries or rent troops that you just put them out there. But look, Ukraine, Israel, they want us to fight their wars for them, and they tell us. And they're constantly dragging us into their fights. And our troops, these valuable lives are needlessly put into danger. They're being attacked in Iraq in a base. They're being attacked in Syria at bases. Why are they there? They don't belong there. They should not be there. These are Americans that should be defending America. And while this is happening, this is the greatest, I can't even believe that this is happening at the same time. Our nation is being invaded at the same exact time. Literally, the border's open, come on in. California says you don't even need a voter ID to vote. In fact, it's illegal to ask for a voter ID. This is happening while our troops are being put in danger out there for someone else, not us. It's so backwards, and it really has to change.
Very good. this news today about our troops sending more troops over there in the invasion with Israel is precarious now because they're moving into Lebanon. It brings back a memory because one of the first things I ever spoke out against, on a significant foreign policy issue, was in 1983, and that was when Reagan sent in 241 Marines to Beirut. And the policy was ill-defined. It was a mess, and there were a few of us went to the floor and said, we don't need to be there. We don't need to be there. But anyway, most people know the story of what happened. The terrorists came in. Maybe they were defending their homeland. Maybe they were just local people. But anyway, the barracks was blown up. 241 Marines were killed, and it was very, very sad. And yet afterwards, I often followed what Reagan would say, and other people would say. Reagan was not highly criticized for this because he was able to say that he was dealing with terrorists. But nevertheless, when Reagan wrote his memoirs and talked about this, he used this as an example of the one time that he was very, very remorse about his decision making, about sending those Marines up there. So. He said he would have never done it again. It was a mistake. And here we are sending our troops up there on the way, on the run. At least we are encouraging the invasion, paying for the invasion, and we're standing by just in case they need us. It seems like we never learn. It'd be fascinating. I would think, I wonder what it'd be like to talk to Ronald Reagan now. I wonder if he still is ambivalent on how we should handle some of these problems. Chris?
Very good, Dr. Paul. I'll finish up with my closing thoughts. The idea must be put to rest of global domination. It has done us in, just like every other nation that fell for it. It's a very enticing idea. It appeals to our baser instincts, but it's a failure idea. We are people, we Americans, like everyone else. What separated our nation at one time was the ideas of liberty. If you look back at the founding of our nation, liberty was on their minds constantly. They wrote about it, they talked about it in Congress, liberty. Today, it's the exact opposite. Government's going to do this, government's going to do this, government's going to do this. It's gone. It's sad to say, but it's gone. So now we're literally like everybody else. We don't even have the idea that separates us of a limited government, of individual liberty, and now can it be rekindled? Perhaps, I hope so. But if you change our country completely by allowing it to be completely invaded, maybe not. Maybe it's gone for good. History or the future will be written the way it's written. But we need to save ourselves. And by saving ourselves, we have to stop with this, we're going to control the world. It's not going to happen. And the longer that we take, the worse it's going to get. People are talking about this election on both sides, that if they don't win, the world is going to end. I mean, no election should ever be that important. Government is not that important, but that's how important government has become in the minds of Americans, that they think that the world will end if their person does not win. We have gone down the wrong road. And you could always turn things around, but it has to be done, and it's done by the spread of good ideas.
Very good. The officials who run the policy like this always need an excuse. And they're trying to come up with a moral excuse where they're doing good. And one of the things they've been using here for us going over there with troops and putting the troops in this area is this time and other times, we have to go in to protect our troops. They never say, why are our troops there? But we have to protect our troops so they go in, and they don't want, somebody to blow up the Marine barracks. So we have to always go in to protect our troops. And then they never seriously consider, well, why don't we just stay out of that business? But it's also to protect Israel. They're not bashful about that, and they provide security for Israel because they're surrounded by people that don't like Israel, and therefore they need to be protected. And a lot of times that'll be the reason to this, and but it's always something else other than protecting the American taxpayer or American citizens or the people that we see that suffer from these wars. And it goes on and on. And sometimes they even use biblical scripture in order to justify some of this activity. And that can be up for debate, because once it's in the form of a spiritual thing, it becomes more difficult to explain or define, and yet there's a lot of that goes on. They have to find it. In spite of the fact that I don't think they have much moral standing for us to have intervention like we do overseas and elsewhere. I don't think it's morally justified, but most of the time it is, because there's no way. I just can't understand how people can orchestrate these wars. Now, there was one senator yesterday, one of the big warmongers. He said, we need to be right there now and sending in our troops and take total control of Lebanon. And you wonder, where do these people come from? I think it's just so sad, because there's nothing more that it breaks my heart is when I see them come back, and the many that have died. It's so sad. But how about the many that have lost limbs, and they just try to struggle the rest of their life to live? And I see it as not a mistake on the short run. I see it as a mistake on the long run, because policies are wrong. We don't follow the Constitution. We don't understand the nature of national defense. And I do not believe for 1 minute that we are safer because of that policy. I think we're a lot more endangered by us doing this. At least it's draining us. It's draining us, the moral fiber of this country. The people are arguing over these policies because there are going to always be two factions. There's two factions in the Ukraine war, the Ukrainians versus the Russians. And well, why do we have to be on one side or the other? Well, we give money to each side, and it's our war, and we got to spread our empire. So it's disgusting, because I think the answer to this is pretty simple. Just non-intervention, mind our own business, bring our troops home, defend this country, and don't be badgered by people saying, well, you're un-American, you're unpatriotic, and you're putting us in danger. I think the opposite is the case. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today to the Liberty Report. Please come back soon.